simple question for you. What now?
Well, I think no one knows what now. We've heard from President Trump various things. He said to the Atlantic reporter, Michael Shear, that he was ready to talk and he thought that the Iranians wanted to talk. Then he said to another reporter that, in fact, this was going to go on for some time, that we were hitting Iran in ways that never could be seen. We've got a lot of different signals being sent. I think the most realistic one is that the president's going to hang in here to try to degrade Iran and its regime. But as you probably know well, Iran has many layers. It has succession plans. It will have a new leader. It will not splinter easily. Iran's regime is quite institutionalized. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is quite fierce. And yes, there will be tremendous harm, but let's remember the Iran-Iraq war went on for 8 years. So Iran does not give up easily. It, in fact, has an entire culture of resistance. It's very fundamental to the regime. I think you all have been talking this morning about oil prices, which are going up. The president, yes, is facing midterms, but he's also facing a visit to China, which is very, very important to him. He held up an arms sale to Taiwan to have good tone for a visit to Beijing, but a high price of oil, a close down of the Strait of Hormuz, where China gets its oil, is not going to be a good signal for a good meeting in Beijing.
Yeah, where does this leave the regime in some ways? I think most military experts out there say it's not quite regime change, and it'd be quite difficult to do so through just an air campaign. Can you tell us what's really left here? Who could really essentially rule Iran?
Well, I think that right now they've consolidated and have a tripartite group that is supposed to hold on to things until the next supreme leader is named. People are trying to see how fast that can happen. They've already replaced all of the people who have been killed, which has been quite effective. I think it's important for viewers to know that Reuters Ipsos just did a poll over the weekend, and only 27% of American voters support what's happening to Iran. It's not that anyone thinks this is a great regime, quite the opposite. We all know that it is odious, repressive, the largest state sponsor of terrorism, totally oppressive to its people. We saw thousands of protesters killed by this regime. So it's not about being in support of the regime. Of course, we would like to see change, but people don't understand what the imminent threat was to the United States of America and why the president had to choose to go to war as opposed to have a really serious negotiation, which now appears to just have been a sham while the president, along with Israel and others, planned these attacks.
Yeah, Wendy, I'm glad you went there because I was actually going to ask, 48 hours before things really kicked off on the weekend, we were talking about those nuclear talks. And now we're getting more headlines coming through that is a plausible option in terms of an off-ramp. Just talk to us about that possibility. Is there a path back to the negotiating table here from current levels?
Probably from President Trump's point of view, there is an off-ramp. I don't think he wants endless military action. He, in fact, got elected on a promise of not having more wars, particularly more wars in the Middle East. But that said, Iran has now been burned twice. In June, we were into negotiations. The United States was negotiating with Iran. And 3 days after those negotiations began, we had attacks by Israel and the United States against military nuclear targets in Iran. This time, Iran thought it was in serious negotiations, but obviously we've now seen through reports that the president was, yes, having Witkoff and Kushner meet with the Iranians, meet with the Omanis, meet with Rafael Grossi of the International Atomic Energy Agency, who would monitor and verify any agreement, but at the same time was planning with Israel this attack on Iran. And when he didn't get a quick result from the negotiations, which you can't do as a drive-by, in my view. He went with the military option, which clearly Israel and we understand Saudi Arabia very much wanted him to do.
Wendy, we've seen the second term of Trump. He has become much more interventionist. It is about this era of nation building. It seems like we're returning to, and which is increasingly breaking away from his campaign promises to keep the U.S. out of foreign wars. And this just comes 2 months after the U.S. military raid in Venezuela. Why do you think we've seen the second term from Trump be much more interventionist in some ways? And really, how big of a gamble is this for the U.S.?
I think it's a huge gamble for the U.S. And a gamble for our budget. This set of attacks in the Middle East are going to cost billions and billions of dollars. And of course, human casualties as well, as we've just seen 3 Americans have died already. But I think that the president hasn't been able to deal with the affordability crisis in the United States, hasn't been able to deal with the Epstein crisis in the United States. We have a partial shutdown right now in the United States of our Department of Homeland Security. And I think he has found that he can exert and project power by doing these international things and not having to address the very real domestic issues that are very much on the minds of American voters. This is a big risk he's taken in the Middle East as we approach midterms, as he tries to go to China to create what he thinks will be a partnership with President Xi. I don't think it will end up that way, but that's what he's hoping for. I think the president sees himself as a very powerful leader, and he wants to anoint himself with other powerful leaders. In all of this, people are no longer talking about Ukraine in the way we need to stop Russia's horrific intervention into a war that has no basis in fact or legality. So lots of things have gone by the wayside that the president can solve, and he's trying to project power and the ability to get things done and to say that the U.S. is more powerful than any country on the face of the earth. And we are quite powerful, but hubris can get in the way, and we've never done a very good job at regime change.
Wendy, one last point on, you mentioned China, and I think one way that this really comes together as far as China is concerned is the Strait of Hormuz, where a lot of the flows, of course, and of Iranian crude passes through, not to mention, of course, the rest of the world. I asked this question when the Venezuela incident happened early this year, and I wonder whether, should we look at this in some way as the U.S. grabbing or trying to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz? Is that, or am I overthinking that?
Well, probably as of today, you may be overthinking it, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. The president began the Venezuela adventure by saying he was stopping boats from sending drugs to the United States. But at the end of the day, his pride and joy is gaining control of the oil in Venezuela and bringing a lot of that profit to the United States. So I don't think you're entirely crazy. I hope that's not what is going on here, but you may not be far afield.